Revenge with Karen.
I knew the wind had changed the moment I found the shredded audit trail stuffed behind the copier like a half-eaten Big Mac. No initials, no log, just redacted reports that smelled like Axe body spray and poor decisions. That's how you know the frat boys have breached the perimeter. You don't hear them coming, they just appear, like a pop-up ad for crypto and regret. I'd been holding Langston Analytics together with coffee, duct tape, polite rage for 9 years. You name it, compliance workflows, security policy at a station, the forgotten hellscape of quarterly federal filings. I'd stitched it all into a system even a half-witted intern could follow. But Langston didn't want backbone. Langston wanted buzzwords. And the founder, God bless his startup brain fog, thought his idiot nephew Connor was the prophet sent to lead them to acquisition heaven. But let me rewind. Langston Analytics isn't some Fortune 500 beast. It's a 220-person operation in a nondescript building, wedged between a vape lounge and a chiropractor who only accepts crypto. We were lean, mean, and allergic to documentation until I came along. My name's Karen, yes, really, and no, I don't call the manager. I am the manager, or I was. I started in ops when the company was small enough to run daily stand-ups in the parking lot. As we grew, I became the one people called when legal got nervous, or when someone accidentally nuked a shared drive. Over time, I rewrote every single compliance doc, built our approval chains from scratch, and created a license transfer protocol so airtight it could survive a Category 5 ego storm. And because I didn't beg for praise or showboat at town halls, they forgot I existed until something broke. The federal processing license, that was mine, tied to my name, my credentials, my MFA device. I wasn't just a signature in the system. I was the system. Nobody really paid attention to that part because no one wanted to think about compliance unless it was in flames. And thanks to me, it never was. Now, I know a lot of you are listening to this thinking, damn, that's just like my office. If it is, do me one favor. Tap that subscribe button. Give it a like. Keeps this team going while we sip coffee and plot revenge, one binder at a time. And trust me, you will want to hear how this ends. Back to Connor. He arrived in a blur of Instagram stubble and obnoxious optimism. First day on the job, he dropped the phrase operational synergy 9 times in a single sentence and mispronounced logistics. Said it like logistics. That should have been the first red flag. But nope, founder introduced him as our new VP of operations. And suddenly, I had to schedule weekly syncs with a man whose entire resume was a failed startup that once tried to gamify divorce proceedings. Connor didn't ask about the license. He didn't even ask what we did. He just wanted to know how fast we could flatten the team and strip away legacy inefficiencies. Translation: cut staff who knew what they were doing and replace them with yes-men who thought Slack was a personality trait. I watched from the sidelines as he ignored procedures, rewrote workflows in crayon, and looped in junior analysts to reimagine the hierarchy. At one point, he tried to outsource a data review process to ChatGPT, no offense, and called it innovative compliance. Asked him once if he'd reviewed Section 14.2 of the vendor governance policy. He blinked like I'd just recited the Dead Sea Scrolls. Karen, he said, we're pivoting away from legacy limitations. Ah yes, the legacy of doing things correctly. What he didn't realize was that I'd been anticipating this moment for months. I saw the writing on the break room whiteboard when team alignment suddenly replaced vendor risk matrix. It wasn't just a frog in boiling water. I was the one heating the pot. Quietly, precisely. So while Connor was busy planning his efficiency roadmap, I was busy auditing his every step. I ran a trace on every policy he tried to touch. I reviewed logs, duplicated contracts, exported the full compliance license, metadata, to a private drive. Then I made one simple change, added a new clause to the license reassignment protocol, required written sign-off by the current holder, me. I didn't tell anyone, didn't make a scene. I just printed a clean copy of the governance doc, slipped it into a blood-red binder, and left it in my bottom drawer. No cloud backup, no shared drive, no Slack channel, just paper. Analog and atomic, because when the time came, and I knew it would, they wouldn't be able to control plus Z their way out of this. And oh honey, the time was coming faster than Connor's expense reports to Scottsdale. The first official act of VP Connor I read one HBR article Langston was to schedule a meeting called Culture Sync, flattening the pyramid. No agenda. No context. Just a calendar invite with a sunrise emoji and a link to a Canva deck so hideous it gave me vertigo. The man had been in the building for 3 days and was already trying to turn us into a damn text talk. He strutted into the war room with that same confident limp all corporate failsons inherit, like his shoes had never touched the ground, only walked across the backs of laid-off legacy staff. He clapped his hands like we were at summer camp and announced, "We're gonna reimagine ops from the inside out." Lean, nimble, no more bureaucratic sludge. Wanted to ask if he meant the compliance license that prevents federal lawsuits or just the budget spreadsheet he didn't know how to open. Instead, I just smiled and wrote bureaucratic sludge on a post-it, stuck it to my monitor as a reminder. Connor's second act, bypassing me entirely. He stopped showing up to my scheduled check-ins. Instead, he pinged junior analysts at 10 p.m. on Slack with lines like, "Got a sec to brainstorm compliance hacks." Compliance hacks. Like it was a life hack video for dodging federal oversight. He even started looping in legal for quick wins on contracts, basically bullying overworked counsel into removing clauses they didn't understand so his MBA ego could hit imaginary milestones. I watched all of it. He didn't know I was still getting access logs. Didn't know I'd trained half the junior staff who now looked confused when he asked them to reroute operational bottlenecks. Bottlenecks like, say, license renewals, vendor certification, or how the data export mechanism we use has to be cleared through an attestation system I built from scratch. Connor didn't want explanations. He wanted applause. So he started scheduling Friday wins calls, 15-minute presentations where people had to pitch what they optimized that week. If you didn't have a PowerPoint with at least 2 made-up metrics and a meme slide, you got benched. One poor guy presented a risk reduction proposal, and Connor replied, "Yeah, but like, what's the vibe?" "The vibe, Connor, is impending litigation." Then came the kicker. I passed by the micro kitchen, Langston's version of a sad corporate oasis, and heard him on the phone. "Yeah, Karen, she's legacy ops. Solid record, but way too process heavy. We need someone who can sell, not babysit logs. Not babysit logs. As if compliance logs were snot-nosed toddlers, instead of the one thing standing between Langston and an SEC colonoscopy. I stood there with my plastic coffee cup, watching the Keurig spit out betrayal in slow motion, and something in me just cooled. Not snapped. Just solidified. It was the moment I stopped hoping for recognition and started preparing for the eulogy. From that point on, I didn't waste breath reminding people what I did. I just made sure every line of what I had done was documented, time-stamped, and protected. Connor was on a mission. Flatten the structure. Cut the veterans. Build a shiny sandbox full of agile children who wouldn't question authority because they didn't know what it looked like. He launched a compliance rejuvenation initiative without including a single person from compliance. Asked marketing to help rebrand our vendor risk protocols. Swear to God, I saw a draft that said badges, not barriers. Like we were gamifying background checks. Legal was too swamped to push back. HR was drunk on culture KPIs. And the founder, was too busy shopping yacht names on his tablet to notice that his nephew was lighting the operational engine room on fire. But me, I noticed everything. I kept a private file of policy versions. I exported workflow diagrams. I printed hard copies of the signature trails. I even kept a rolling list of the Slack messages where Connor instructed people to bypass standard review protocols, all time-stamped, all exported, all safe. Every empire falls. If you build the right trapdoor underneath the throne, you don't have to push. You just wait for gravity to do its job. And gravity was about to get real personal. I waited until Connor left early for his client golf alignment session, a phrase so corporate it made me want to peel my own teeth off with a letter opener. He strutted out of the office at 2:17 p.m., double-popped collar and all, and I knew I had a window. 45 minutes, maybe less, before the rest of the sales pod followed him out like lemmings to the rooftop kombucha fridge. I shut my door, drew the blinds, locked the internal calendar invite with a fake name, vendor webinar, agile procurement, and opened my personal laptop. Not the company-issued one. That one was for Slack notifications and pretending to care about quarterly occurs. This one was for war. First, the access logs. I downloaded every change Connor had made or tried to make to our internal workflows. I flagged 6 instances of him initiating policy edits without proper sign-off. One of them, I kid you not, attempted to replace our entire data vendor attestation process with a 6-question type form. Question 5 was literally, would you consider yourself ethical? With a smiley face scale. Then I opened the master license ledger. This wasn't some Slack-integrated SAW app with cute icons and color-coded labels. This was the backbone of our operations. A dry, brutal document listing every active federal compliance license Langston held. The one that mattered most, the big one, tied to my ID, not its, not legal's. Mine. That had been true since 2018, back when we didn't even have two-factor authentication, and our idea of compliance was checking if someone knew where the fire extinguisher was. Buried deep in the document was a clause about license reassignment. It hadn't been touched in years. Vague, open-ended, so I rewrote it. Carefully. Quietly. One paragraph, 48 words. Any reassignment, revocation, or substitution of this federal compliance license must be initiated, authorized, verified in writing by the current registered holder. This attestation shall be accompanied by multi-authentication validation and logged in the governance record. Legalese, yes, but bulletproof, and every word pointed to me. I didn't save it on the shared drive. I didn't email it to legal. I printed it. Single-sided. On the good stock paper we usually reserve for board presentations and vendor bribes. Then I slid it into a red binder, and I'd pre-labeled governance archive, physical redundancy. For months, I'd been sprinkling decoy updates into that binder, just enough to make it look mundane, boring, something no one would question if they stumbled across it. But this page, this one clause, was the razor in the birthday cake. I added one last touch, a sticky note with today's date, scribbled in my usual handwriting, like it had been there all along. I tucked the binder into the bottom drawer of my file cabinet, locked it, pocketed the key. Then I leaned back in my chair and stared at the office door, half expecting Connor to burst in wearing his Team Langston quarter-zip and accuse me of being off-brand. Instead, I got silence. Beautiful, humming silence. That night, I went home and poured myself a neat 2 fingers of bourbon. Not the celebratory kind, this wasn't a victory. Not yet. This was preparation, because now the line had been drawn. I wasn't waiting for HR. I wasn't praying for justice. I was building a detonator. The next day, Connor announced a new compliance flexibility initiative in the all-hands Slack. Posted a selfie with legal, grinning like they'd just cured cancer with a pivot table. Said we were unlocking operational freedom and sunsetting outdated credential bottlenecks. I replied with a thumbs-up emoji. It was the last message I ever sent in that Slack channel. From that moment on, I was done playing defense. Let the frat prince think he'd won. Let him rearrange his playbook and cut redundancies. Let him toast his own brilliance in overpriced whiskey with people too tired or scared to say otherwise. Me, I had a red binder. I had a clause. I had a plan. And soon enough, they'd have a problem they couldn't fix with buzzwords and bravado. Because some systems don't crash. Some systems wait. It was raining, of course. The kind of cold November drizzle that seeps through your coat and into your bones. I should have known something was coming. The office espresso machine was out of oat milk, and the receptionist wouldn't make eye contact. Bad omens always travel in pairs. At 3:43 p.m., my calendar pinged, quick sync ops alignment. No subject, no HR, just Connor. He even had the gall to book it in my own office, like a dog pissing on a fire hydrant. It doesn't understand. I walked in to find him already seated at my desk, leaning back like he'd been the one managing compliance protocols during the 2019 audit that nearly sent legal into cardiac arrest. His cologne hit first, some blend of citrus arrogance and desperation. He gestured to the chair across from him like he was doing me a favor. Karen, he started, that used car salesman tone that says I'm about to screw you but smile anyway. This isn't easy, so I'll get right to it. Of course he would. That's how people like him do it. They rip the parachute out of your pack midair, then hand you a coupon for skydiving lessons. You've been amazing, truly, but as we prep for acquisition, we're making strategic adjustments to streamline the org. You're being transitioned out. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. Corporate equivalent of a stab in the back followed by a Hallmark card. I looked at him, really looked. He didn't have a folder, no packet, no rep from HR. Just his stupid watch blinking on his wrist and his eyes darting like a kid bluffing at poker. I didn't flinch, Didn't argue, didn't ask why, I just smiled. Of course, I said, I understand. He blinked, confused. No resistance, no tearful protest, just quiet compliance. Had no idea he'd just poked a sleeping volcano with a Nerf bat. I signed whatever he handed me. Severance package, termination acknowledgement, the usual corporate breakup paperwork that's equal parts legal and insulting. No mention of the binder, no reference to the license. Just some boilerplate trash about organizational realignment and forward-looking operational goals. They cut my badge access 30 minutes later. Security walked me to the elevator like I was a disgraced senator. One even said, "Sorry about this," under his breath. I nodded and carried the cardboard box they gave me, full of desk plants and passive-aggressive coffee mugs. What they didn't know, what Connor didn't know, is that the real asset wasn't on my desk. It was in that drawer. The one with the red binder, now sitting quietly in my apartment, tucked between a stack of old tax returns and a vintage copy of The Art of War. They thought they'd taken everything. But the license was still mine. Because buried in that digital jungle of our systems, among the compliance flows, the legal triggers, the metadata chain, was a signature path that led to one person, me. And thanks to the clause I'd quietly dropped into the governance binder, no one could touch it. Not legal, not IT, and sure as hell not Connor. Reassignment required written authorization by the current holder, plus multi-factor verification. No email, no DocuSign, physical attestation. And guess who had the only hard copy of the updated clause? That's right, the redundant babysitter of logs. They thought I was boxed up and gone. They thought wrong. That night, I lit a candle, poured a glass of whiskey, and pulled the binder out of its hiding spot. I opened it to the page with the clause, printed cleanly, signed in ink, dated, verified. Then I took out my phone and took a picture. Insurance. Meanwhile, Connor was probably celebrating with kombucha shots and a Slack emoji storm, thinking he'd finally taken the castle. But he didn't know he'd just handed me the keys to the moat, the drawbridge, and the freaking dragon. It wasn't personal, he was right. It was surgical, because now the game had changed. I wasn't on the defense anymore. I was the contingency plan. No one survives the storm they don't see coming. The Monday after they walked me out, Langston's Slack lit up like a Christmas tree soaked in lighter fluid. Screenshots started circulating from Connor's all-hands announcement. Big news coming. Rocket major opportunity inbound. Followed by a photo of him at a steakhouse with a group of painfully generic men in navy blazers clinking overpriced bourbon. The caption? Aligning visions for Langston's next chapter. Translation, someone was sniffing around for buyout. Turns out, the rumor mill wasn't lying this time. Langston Analytics was under NDA evaluation for a $60 million acquisition by a tech conglomerate known for swallowing mid-sized firms whole and spitting out their bones labeled synergy. And just like that, everyone in the building started acting like they worked at NASA during a shuttle launch. Connor, of course, was at the center of it all. Suddenly, was CCing legal on everything, talking in half sentences like we'll loop back on that once the strategic overlay is blessed. He started wearing suits. Not good ones, sales bro suits that looked like they came with a free bottle of hair gel and a Bluetooth headset. The kind of suits that scream, I'm pretending to know what EBITDA is. Legal, on the other hand, looked like they hadn't slept in 3 days. They were sprinting through old policy docs, trying to clean up anything that could derail a deal. I even heard they installed a printer in the hallway just for churning out contract addendums. You could smell the toner fear in the air. But what nobody seemed to notice, because, let's be honest, nobody was paid to think beyond next quarter, was the gaping hole in their compliance stack. The license. The one thing that validated every federal data process they were about to hand over. The buyers would ask for it, always do. And when they did, oh, I was ready. 3 days into this acquisition circus, I got a LinkedIn message from someone I didn't recognize. A clean profile photo, business casual, 0 mutuals. Hi Karen, hope you don't mind me reaching out directly. I'm a due diligence coordinator on behalf of the evaluation team looking at Langston. I noticed your name on several legacy policy filings. Just curious, were you the compliance lead? I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I smiled. Still am, technically. Sent. No emojis, no exclamation points, just fact. Within an hour, they viewed my profile 6 times. 2 hours later, a new message appeared. Would you be open to a brief call? Informal, just context gathering. I didn't answer right away. Let them sweat. That evening, I sat on my balcony with the red binder on the table beside me. I flipped to the clause again, eyes tracing the words I'd crafted so carefully. I didn't need to bluff. I didn't need revenge show or scorched earth dramatics. I had something better. I had leverage. Connor didn't know I'd been contacted. He was too busy basking in attention from the founder, who now referred to him as our closer. I heard he started introducing himself to buyers as head of federal ops, which is hilarious, because the only federal thing Connor had ever touched was his FAFSA application. I doubt he filled that out right either. I knew what was coming. The diligence team was going to pull the checklist. Item #11, confirm federal compliance license. Status, active, holder Karen M, last verified 29 days ago. That would trigger a chain reaction. Legal would scramble. Connor would assume it was an oversight. He'd start calling people who couldn't answer him because they didn't hold the key. I did, and I wasn't in the building anymore. Me be clear, I wasn't rooting for Langston to burn. I built too much of it with my own hands to want that. But I wasn't about to hand over my work to a man who thought you could pivot your way around federal law with a Canva deck and a firm handshake. This wasn't revenge. This was alignment of power, of timing, of truth. The license clock was ticking, and I was the only one holding the batteries. Let's see how long Connor could dance before the music stopped. All had 73 participants. 73. Buyers, consultants, lawyers, execs, finance, IT, branding, hell. I think one guy was just there to mute and unmute people. The agenda said Phase 2, licensing, liabilities, and legal exposure, which is corporate for let's find out who forgot to plug in the life support before we buy this thing. I wasn't supposed to be there. Technically, I wasn't even with the company anymore. But someone, probably legal, probably panicked, had quietly looped me in as a silent observer. No mic, no camera, just a muted black square with the name KM Observer. I watched from the digital shadows as the buyers led the dance. Very calm, very polite. The kind of calm that means they've already found a few skeletons and are about to ask if they come with the house. Connor was in full peacock mode, sitting in the center square, hair gelled back like a news anchor, speaking in half-lies and acronyms like he invented governance. And so, from an operational standpoint, we've really tightened ship, flattened our stacks, removed legacy inefficiencies. We've transitioned all core compliance functions to a leaner, more agile framework. Lean, agile, same words he used when he gutted my department. Then came the question. A woman from the buyer's side, gray blazer, glasses, voice like velvet and razor blades, spoke up. Can someone on Langston's side please confirm the status and current holder of the federal data processing license? Silence. For half a second, no one moved. Connor jumped in with the enthusiasm of a man who thinks charm can override fact. Absolutely, that's already covered. We've got that reassigned internally. I believe it's with Darren now, in IT compliance. He's been overseeing policy rollout and platform integration. So yeah, he's our guy there. Connor gave a thumbs up to the screen like it owed him applause. But then legal turned their camera on. And let me tell you something, when the lead counsel turns on their camera during a due diligence call, that's the digital equivalent of someone slamming open the saloon doors with a shotgun. Connor, she said slowly, can you clarify when the reassignment occurred? I'm not seeing any signed attestation or multi-factor verification tied to Darren's ID. Connor blinked, stuttered, fumbled for his phone like it would sprout answers. I mean the team handled it. Karen was transitioned, so we had to move fast. Darren was next up. It's all clean. It was not all clean, not even close. That's when I did it. I reached over, unmuted myself with one click, and turned on my camera. The screen flickered to life, and for the first time in 31 days, I was back in the Langston grid. I didn't speak, didn't smirk, didn't even blink. I simply lifted the red binder into frame. Let it sit there in the lower corner of my camera like a loaded gun on the table. Instant silence. It was the kind of pause that makes people shift in their chairs even when they are alone. You could feel the oxygen leave the call. Legal's eyes narrowed. Karen, she said slowly, can you confirm who signed the reassignment of the federal compliance license? I met her gaze. Calm, cool, clinical. No one did, I said. Clause 9.2, reassignment requires written attestation by the current holder, along with verified multi-factor approval. Another pause, longer this time. Are you still the registered holder? The buyer's rep asked, her voice somehow even colder. I nodded once. Yes. Connor was still blinking. Darren's camera came on briefly, then shut off again, like he'd realized too late he was now on a live feed of his own professional funeral. Legal scrambled. Could see them flipping through files off-screen, rifling through PDFs that weren't going to help them. Because none of them had the binder. None of them even knew about the clause. It was paper, ink, intention, and they'd never seen it coming. Connor tried to recover. I mean, obviously we can fix this. It's a minor administrative thing. Karen, if you just, I muted myself. Didn't respond. Let them talk into the silence. That's when it became clear. This wasn't just a missing signature. This was a loaded compliance flaw sitting in the middle of a $60 million deal, and I was the only one holding the fuse. Let them scramble. Let Connor sweat bullets in his synthetic suit. I'd given them a warning shot, but I wasn't here to save them. I was here to be seen. And now they knew exactly where the real power lived. Connor's face was the exact color of an undercooked chicken nugget. The shade, confused beige with a gloss of cold sweat. He stared into the Zoom camera like he was waiting for someone, anyone, to bail him out, toss him a lifeline, or at least mute him before he made it worse. No such mercy came. Legal was on a warpath. They had gone full screen share mode, flipping through policy logs like a blackjack dealer on Red Bull. And every page, every single one, had my name at the bottom. Karen M., initialed, time-stamped, multi-authed, and next to every signature, a version control hash they couldn't fake, rewrite, or wish away. Okay, Legal muttered, clearly trying not to swear with the buyer team still watching. Okay, let's go back to the license reassignment trail. Darren, your name's not on any of these forms. Did you at any point request a formal transfer? Darren reappeared on camera like a ghost caught in the headlights of a corporate semi. I thought, Connor said he'd handle it. Never signed anything. Connor raised both hands like the cops just pulled him over. Look, it was a formality, right? She was gone, we needed continuity, so I told Darren to step in, and it's not like it wasn't the plan. It's not a formality, Legal snapped. It's a federal license, with identity verification tied to a personal compliance account. You can't just hand it off like a gym membership, Connor. Someone from finance unmuted and softly asked, wait, it's still under Karen's credentials? Yes, I replied calmly, still is. Another pause, this one deeper, dead air, sliced only by the sound of someone, probably Legal, slapping a binder shut. Then came the line, the one that made the whole call tip sideways. Did you, Legal said slowly, terminate the only license holder? Connor didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, because he couldn't. His mouth opened, but no words came out, just this wheezing sound like a deflated yoga ball. His eyes bounced from screen to screen, looking for an escape hatch that didn't exist. Every exec on that call was now realizing the same thing at the exact same moment. The deal was dead in the water. Because compliance isn't about software. It's about authority. And I still had it. One of the buyers cleared their throat. We'll need a moment to revisit the risk profile with our legal counsel. That's acquisition speak for you just torched $60 million in real time. I watched as Legal opened the PDF again, scrolling to the clause I knew they'd find, because I'd printed it in red ink. Clause 9.2, revocation of license must be initiated by current holder in writing. I had signed it, dated it, sealed it in a red binder they didn't even know existed until 30 minutes ago. And I hadn't revoked a damn thing. Said you were building in operational redundancies, someone on the board whispered through gritted teeth. But you cut the only person with license authority? Connor looked like he was about to vomit into his smart mug. Still, I said nothing more. Let them choke on it. Let them scroll, search, panic. I had moved past anger days ago. What I felt now was something quieter. Colder, not glee, not even satisfaction. Just inevitability. Bet the whole company on a man who thought streamlining meant firing the woman who wrote the system he couldn't understand. And now the system was biting back, with my name on every tooth. It took them 36 hours to break. First came the panicked emails from Legal, subject lines like urgent, license review follow-up, and Karen, your input needed for transaction continuity. Then the calls. I let them ring out. Voicemails piled up, each one a little more desperate than the last. Hi, Karen, just circling back to see if you're available for a quick sync. Karen, we really need to clarify the current license status. And finally, the one that dropped the veil. We'd be grateful to discuss options for reinstating your access. Options. That's corporate speak for we're screwed, and we know it. I didn't respond, because I don't negotiate with people who call me redundant on a Friday and beg for my signature on a Tuesday. They kept trying. Legal. Ops. Even someone from IT who once told me I overcomplicated the documentation process sent a message with a folded hands emoji. A folded hands emoji from a grown man. But I wasn't here for apologies. I was waiting for leverage to mature. And right on schedule, it did. On Thursday morning, got a message. Not from the top brass, not from Connor. He'd gone radio silent, but from a junior counsel named Aditi. Young, sharp, smart enough to know where the real power lived. Her message was brief. Hi, Karen. I've been asked to reach out. We're prepared to set formal terms, not a request terms when you're ready. Now we were speaking the same language. I replied with a calendar invite. 9:00 a.m. Friday. 1 hour. My Zoom room. No cameras unless I turned mine on first. They accepted in 6 minutes. When I joined, I didn't waste time with small talk. No warm-up, no faux humility, just the facts. I'm willing to unlock the license and transfer control, provided my terms are met. Silence. Then Aditi, carefully, we're listening. I read from a one-pager I'd written the night before. Printed, signed, watermarked. 1. Full severance package reinstated, backdated to my original termination. No NDA, no silence clauses, no mutual non-disparagement. A pause. No one objected. 2. Retroactive raise for FY 2023. Market adjustment plus 15%. Paid out in lump sum. Someone, probably finance, started typing furiously. I continued. 3. A 12-month consultancy retainer at 2x my previous salary. I will not be full-time, will not attend team meetings. I will answer compliance questions and sign license-related documents. That's it. And 4, I said, letting the silence stretch just long enough to raise heart rates. Connor is to be formally removed from any operational oversight roles, effective immediately, and not reassigned to another title with overlapping access. I don't care what you call him, but he doesn't touch compliance. Not directly, not adjacent, not at all. It was the real ask, not revenge. Restitution. They tried to object. A nervous voice asked, is Connor's removal negotiable? I raised an eyebrow. You've got a compliance license with a single point of failure. I'm the key, you want access, remove the glitch. No one pushed back again. The call ended 10 minutes early. I gave them 48 hours to deliver the paperwork. No delays, no red lines, no edits. I wasn't asking to be rehired. I was buying back my position on my terms. Not for the title, not for the perks, certainly not to save them, just for the satisfaction of knowing they couldn't move without me. Connor was still somewhere in that building, probably breathing into a brown paper bag, wondering how the babysitter of logs had flipped the entire boardroom upside down. He wouldn't have to wonder much longer. Clause 9.2 had started the fire. Now I was about to close the deal. The same pen they told me to drop on my way out. The emergency board call was set for 7:00 a.m., which in corporate time means we're bleeding out and someone finally noticed. Half the participants were still in bathrobes, squinting at screens, mugs in hand. One of the buyers didn't even bother to turn their camera on. Just a black square labeled Martin Strategic Counsel, ominous and silent. The founder, Greg Langston himself, sat dead center, unshaven, eyes rimmed with red, the corners of his mouth twitching like he was holding back a scream and an ulcer at the same time. His dream deal was circling the drain. And the cause? His golden boy nephew, now sitting 3 tiles over, visibly sweating through his dress shirt like he'd run there from a fire he started. I wasn't on the initial invite. They sent the link to Aditi, hoping she'd be the messenger. But she forwarded it to me directly with one note. They want access. Need to hear it from you. So I logged in. Muted, dark screen. Just another ominous black tile, this one labeled Karen M. They argued for 20 minutes without me. Circular panic masked as strategy. Suggestions flew like wet paper towels. Can we mirror the license temporarily? Can we backdate a proxy credential? What if we deactivate MFA on the legacy token? Every suggestion earned a fresh wave of silence or a muted legal groan. Eventually, Greg sat up and said it outright. We need Karen. Someone else added, let's just hear her terms again, so I turned on my camera. For the second time in as many weeks, every eye snapped to the screen. The black tile blinked into existence, and there I was, hair up, black blazer, binder on the desk in front of me. No smile, no greeting, just precision. I held it up again, the red binder, the one that had started this entire reckoning, flipped it open to the same page. The clause was there, bold and undeniable, printed in red ink like a warning flare they'd all ignored. I read it slowly, clearly. Clause 9.2. License at a station shall not be transferred without verified multi-authenticated approval by the current holder. Then I closed the binder. Firm, audible, my signature, I said, voice like cold steel, is no longer available. Silence. Long, heavy, ruinous, kind of silence that stretches across careers and contracts and egos like a grave sheet. Then Greg turned to Connor, not dramatically, not even angrily, just hollow. "Connor," he said quietly, "what have you done?" Connor didn't answer. He just sank back in his chair, eyes glassy, one hand twitching on the table like it might reach for a response that wasn't coming. I didn't stay for the fallout, didn't need to. I left the call. Walked to Langston's lobby one last time, not to go in but to pass by. The receptionist looked up and froze, eyes darting to the red binder in my hand like it was radioactive. It might as well have been. My phone buzzed, one notification. Incoming wire transfer $394,000 and 0 cents USD. Memo, license reinstatement plus consultant retainer. I slipped the phone back in my coat pocket, crossed the street, and didn't look back. You can gut a department. You can silence a name. You can even cut off a badge and toss someone into the rain with a box full of coffee mugs. But if you fire the hand holding the pen, you'd better make damn sure it didn't take the contract with it. Next time, check who holds the pen before you fire the hand. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories.